This is Da Vinci's Madonna of the Rocks. Not Madonna on the Rocks. That would be a mixed drink, and that would be a whole different thingy, okay? This particular painting was commissioned from Da Vinci by a monastery to go on their altar in their main chapel. Now, when you commission a work in the 1400s, the way it works is you actually write out a contract. And you tell the artist what he's supposed to make for you. You agree on a price and you pay him. When the artist gets paid, it is expected that that money is including all of the supplies needed to make the artwork. So in other words, if you're hiring a sculptor, he has to buy the stone, the tools, everything he needs out of the money you pay him. In this case, Da Vinci was expected to buy the paints, the board, the material for the frame, everything out of the price that he was paid by the monastery. The painting is interesting for a variety of reasons. Number one, the contract, okay? Da Vinci is contracted to paint, you ready? A picture of the Virgin Mary enthroned upon her golden heavenly throne with baby Jesus on her lap blessing the viewer. Around her will stand 8 carefully painted angels against a background of gold. How's that working out for you in that picture? Yeah. Da Vinci actually didn't paint what he was contracted to, and not only that, the monks actually didn't get the painting, and about 8 years later, they dragged Da Vinci's butt to court asking, "Where's our picture?" Now, from our point of view, this picture is really amazing, and let me explain a little bit of how and why it's so amazing. First of all, this is the Madonna of the Rocks because, well, it's the Madonna, and if you look in the background, she's sitting in a cave made of a bunch of rocks. There are various plants and so on around the figures in the image. And part of what is so amazing to us is Da Vinci's actual creation of the background. Now, for one thing, he's using atmospheric perspective here. Please notice in the background how the colors and detail gradually fade into the background, creating a sense of depth and distance. More than that, though, Da Vinci actually pays an incredible amount of attention to those rocks and plants that are in the background of the picture. In Da Vinci's journals, what we call the Da Vinci Codex. Now that's Codex with an X on the end, not the Da Vinci Code. That's a fiction novel, okay? The Da Vinci journals, the Da Vinci Codex, tell us that Da Vinci actually took a vacation to the Alps in the north of Italy shortly before he started painting Madonna of the Rocks. This is a page out of his codex, his journals, and you can see that he carefully sketches in the plants that he sees, and he also sketches in the rocks and animals. He makes extensive notes on them. If you look to the left of the sketches, you're going to see writing in Italian. That's Leonardo da Vinci's writing. Something interesting about that writing. If you look at the writing actually goes from right to left. Now, that's not the way you normally write Italian. And a lot of people have been surprised at that, and they've come up with alternate explanations as to why Da Vinci consistently writes from right to left in his journals. One of the theories is that Da Vinci was afraid of other people seeing what he was writing. He was paranoid, and therefore he tried this special backwards writing to keep people from seeing what he was writing. That is possible. Da Vinci himself was a big fan of conspiracy theories. He probably would have liked the Da Vinci Code. He would have thought it was awesome that someone had involved him in a conspiracy. He was always trying to join secret organizations and frequently not getting accepted. The other explanation is a much simpler one. We know for a fact that Da Vinci was left-handed. And if you're a lefty or you know someone who's a lefty, writing from left to right drags your hand over the lettering, and it really sucks because it smudges the ink and makes it difficult. Da Vinci was writing with liquid ink from an inkwell that he had to dip a quill in and use to write. Therefore, dragging his hand over that liquid ink on the page would have made a real mess. So it's very possible Da Vinci just taught himself, he's a genius, to write from right to left so that he wouldn't have to make a mess. Now, the interesting thing about all these studies of the plants and the stones and so on is that Da Vinci learned a large amount about botany and geology, and he put it all to use in the painting. The Madonna of the Rocks actually displays correct botany and geology. There are two guys who actually both did their doctoral dissertation, their PhD dissertation, on the Madonna of the Rocks. One's a botanist and one's a geologist. And remarkably, all of the images in the background are actually correct. They can tell you what type of stone that is in the background behind Mary. They can tell you what kind of plant that is, and the plant is actually growing on the right kind of stone. So if that kind of plant only grows up between the cracks in limestone, it's only growing up between the cracks in limestone in the picture, which is amazing. The other thing that's amazing about this image, if you look at the whole painting, your background is beautifully accurate. But beyond that, Da Vinci does some remarkable things with the foreground, with the figures. Now, let me explain what's actually in the painting. Let me explain what you're looking at here. In your main area here, you have Mary, the Madonna, in the blue robe, all right? Under her right hand, that's John the Baptist. You can see he's kneeling with his hands clasped in prayer, sign of respect. Under Mary's left hand is another baby. That's actually baby Jesus. You can see him raising his hand in the symbol of blessing. And then clear at the right-hand side is an angel. Now, it's hard. You may have to look carefully, but from the back of that figure, above the orangish-red cape, there is a pair of wings, okay? So that is an angel. Now, one other minor detail here. When we talked about Donatello and the David, I told you that these guys, according to Giorgio Vasari, the guy who wrote the book, Lives of the Artists, these guys had an ancient Greek text that said true human beauty was neither male nor female, but human, above male or female. Donatello tended to make that more effeminate. We looked at his statue of David, which was had some very female characteristics. Da Vinci is going for that same ideal, neither male nor female, but a little bit of both. And that figure on the right-hand side, that angel, is proof of how Da Vinci interprets that. That figure on the right-hand side there is the angel Uriel, which is a male angel. Yeah. That figure on the right-hand side with the wings and the red, that's a boy. Yeah. Da Vinci tends to fall toward the feminine side on the human beauty thing when he creates images of men. Now, the interesting thing about these figures is that Da Vinci bases this painting, like many of his paintings, in math. Those figures in the front form a cone or pyramid shape, wider at the bottom, coming out towards you in three-dimensional space, with Jesus serving as the corner of the pyramid shape. It then moves upward and back away from you to culminate at Mary's head. Da Vinci creates this mathematically correct in 3 dimensions, building on the work of Masaccio, but he does more than that. He incorporates another level of mathematics into this. The pyramid or cone shape actually is defined by a spiral that rises up through the figures. The lowest level of the spiral starts just with baby Jesus' fingers down there at the bottom. It goes up across the bottom of baby Jesus' foot, the bottom of John the Baptist's foot, his knee, and so on. The second row comes up through baby Jesus' elbow, his leg, John the Baptist's knee, and so on. What's amazing about those lines of that spiral is that the distance between them is actually defined by a specific mathematical ratio, what we call the golden mean, or the golden ratio. It's based on Fibonacci's numbers, and Da Vinci purposely incorporates that to create a harmonious appearance or balance in the figure. He also creates that atmospheric perspective with things disappearing into the distance, changing detail and color. And he creates a beautiful blending of colors. There are no specific definite lines in this painting. Instead, everything simply seems to blend together. If you look at Mary's features, at the skin on baby John and baby Jesus, you're going to see light and shadow, not specific lines defining anything. For me, one of the most beautiful examples of this is actually if you look at that male angel's arm. You'll see that Da Vinci has chosen to make the arm be covered in cloth, but that cloth is so thin that it's almost transparent or translucent. And Da Vinci uses this light and shading so beautifully that you can see the cloth, but you can see through it to the angel's arm. And all of that is created using that range of color, that beautiful blending that Da Vinci creates. Now, Da Vinci creates beautiful depth here, beautiful skin tones, and a delicacy of expression, which all sounds really fancy schmancy, but let me go back and finish the story I started earlier, and I'll be able to explain what I mean by that. Da Vinci was hired to create this by this monastery, but about 8 years later, the monastery started wondering where their painting was because they never got it. Da Vinci refuses to give them their painting because he says they did not pay him enough in the contract to complete the gold frame that the monks wanted around the painting. The monks take Da Vinci to court for breach of contract, and in the end of the case, the judge rules that Da Vinci owes the monks a painting. Now, please note, Da Vinci owes the monks a painting. Not this painting, a painting. Da Vinci goes back to his studio and tells his assistants that they should copy this painting for the monastery. What does the monastery actually receive?